in which our happy couples learn that life is not easy, whether as newlyweds or as recent divorcees. Chapter 15. They had only just come back from Moscow and were glad of their solitude. He was sitting at the desk in his study writing, she in that dark lilac dress she had worn in the first days after their marriage and had now put on again, and which was especially memorable and dear to him, was sitting on the sofa, that same old leather sofa that had always stood in the study of Levine's father and grandfather, and doing embroidery anglaise. He thought and wrote, rejoicing all the while at the feeling of her presence. He had not given up work either on the estate or on his book, which was to explain the principles of a new way of farming. But as this work and thought had once appeared small and insignificant to him compared to the darkness that covered his whole life, so now, too, they appeared unimportant and small compared to the life flooded with the bright light of happiness that lay before him. He continued his occupations, but he now felt that the center of gravity of his attention had shifted elsewhere, and owing to that he looked at his work quite differently and more clearly. Formerly his work had been a salvation from life for him. Formerly he had felt that without it his life would have been too bleak. But now this work was necessary to him so that life would not be so uniformly bright. Taking up his papers again, rereading what he had written, he was pleased to find that the thing was worth working on. It was new and useful. Many of his former thoughts seemed superfluous and extreme, but many gaps became clear to him as he refreshed the whole thing in his memory. He was now writing a new chapter on the reasons for the unprofitable state of agriculture in Russia. He maintained that Russia's poverty came not only from an incorrect distribution of landed property and a false orientation, but had recently been contributed to by an alien civilization abnormally grafted on to Russia, particularly by the means of communication and the railways, entailing a centralization in cities, the development of luxury, and, as a result of that, to the detriment of agriculture, the development of factory industry, of credit and its companion, the stock exchange. It seemed to him that when the wealth of a state develops normally, all these phenomena occur only after considerable labor has already been invested in agriculture. After it has arrived at the correct, or at least a definite condition, that the wealth of a country should grow uniformly and in particular so that the other branches of wealth do not outstrip agriculture, that in conformity with a given state of agriculture there should exist corresponding means of communication, and that considering our incorrect use of the land, the railways, brought about not by economic but by political necessity, were premature, and instead of contributing to agriculture, which was what they were expected to do, had outstripped, and that therefore, just as the one-sided and premature development of one organ in an animal would hinder its general development, so credit, the means of communication, the increase of factory industry, though undoubtedly necessary in Europe, where their time had come, here in Russia only harmed the general development of wealth by setting aside the main, immediate question of the organization of agriculture. While he was doing his writing, she was thinking of how unnaturally attentive her husband had been to the young Princess Charsky, who had very tactlessly bantered with her on the eve of their departure. He's jealous, she thought. My God, how sweet and silly he is. He's jealous of me. If he only knew that they're all the same as Pyotr the cook for me, she thought, gazing at his nape and red neck with a proprietary feeling strange to her. Though it's a pity to distract him from his work, but he'll have time to do it. I must look at his face. Will he feel me looking at him? I want him to turn around. I want him to. And she opened her eyes wide, wishing thereby to increase the effect of her gaze. Yes, they draw all the juices off to themselves, and lend a false glitter, he muttered, stopped writing, and, feeling her looking at him and smiling, turned to her. What? He asked, smiling and getting up. He turned, she thought. Nothing. I just wanted you to turn to me, she said, looking at him and trying to see whether he was annoyed that she had distracted him. How good it is for us here together. For me, that is, he said, going to her and beaming with a smile of happiness. It's so good for me. I won't go anywhere, especially not to Moscow. And what have you been thinking? Me? I was thinking... No. Go and write. Don't get distracted, she said, puckering her lips. And I've got to cut out these little holes now, see? She took the scissors and began to cut. No, tell me what, he said, sitting down beside her and watching the circular movement of the small scissors. What was I thinking? I was thinking about Moscow, about the nape of your neck. Precisely why I've been given such happiness. It's unnatural, too good, he said, kissing her hand. For me, on the contrary, the better it is, the more natural it seems. And you've got a little strand there, he said, carefully turning her hand. A little strand. See? Right here. No. We're busy with our work. But the work no longer went on, and they guiltily jumped away from each other when Kuzma came to announce that tea was served. Have they come from the city? Levine asked Kuzma. They've just arrived. They're unpacking. Come quickly, she said as she left the study, or I'll read the letters without you, and then let's play four hands. Left alone, he put his notebooks into the new briefcase she had bought, and began washing his hands at the new washstand with its elegant new accessories that had also appeared with her. Levine smiled at his thoughts and shook his head at them disapprovingly. He suffered from a feeling akin to remorse. There was something shameful, pampered, Capuan, as he called it himself, in his present life. It's not good to live like this. It will soon be 3 months, and I'm not doing anything. Today is almost the first time I seriously got down to work. And what? I no sooner started than I dropped it. Even my usual occupations, I've all but abandoned them too. My farming, I almost don't go to look after it. I either feel sorry to leave her or see that she's bored. And here I used to think that life before marriage was just so. Anyhow, didn't count. And that real life started after marriage. And it will soon be 3 months, and I've never spent my time so idly and uselessly. No, it's impossible. I must get started. Of course, it's not her fault. There's nothing to reproach her for. I must be firmer myself, must fence off my male independence, or else I may get into the habit and teach it to her. Of course, it's not her fault, he said to himself. But it is hard for a discontented man not to reproach someone else, especially the very one who is closest to him, for his discontent. And it vaguely occurred to Levine, not that she was at fault. She could not be at fault for anything, but that her upbringing was at fault, was too superficial and frivolous. That fool Charsky. I know she'd have liked to stop him, but she didn't know how. Yes, besides an interest in the house, That she does have. Besides her clothes and her broderie anglaise, she has no serious interests. No interest in my work, in farming, in the musics, nor in music, which she is quite good at, nor in reading. She is not doing anything and is quite content. In his soul, Levine disapproved of that, and did not yet understand that she was preparing for the period of activity which was to come for her, when she would be at one and the same time the wife of her husband, the mistress of the house, and would bear, nurse, and raise her children. He did not understand that she knew it intuitively, and while preparing for this awesome task, did not reproach herself for the moments of insouciance and the happiness of love that she enjoyed now, while cheerfully building her future nest. If you enjoy this format, please leave a like and subscribe and return tomorrow for the next chapter.